You're listening to Empty Nest Empires podcast, episode number 8. I thank you so much for joining me today. I have a really great topic for us to cover today, and that is what you need to know before you quit your job. I see so many people right now who they see the opportunities on the internet. Latest statistics are there's 1,700 new millionaires added in the United States daily. Yeah, why not me? Why not you? We all think this way, and so we've got visions of grandeur, we have an idea, we have a plan, and we just want to quit our jobs and go for it. But there's a strategy that needs to be considered here. And so I've invited my friend Keenya Kelly. Keenya is an accomplished business executive, a teacher, and an inspirational speaker. She found her voice by writing and speaking about understanding your God-given purpose and living up to your fullest potential. She captures her audiences by conveying powerful lessons of overcoming fear, self-doubt, and her own divorce, to creating successful six-figure businesses, utilizing her gifts and her corporate background. Keenya is the CEO of If You Brand It, a branding and consulting firm in Redding, California, where she strategically helps business owners go from the formulation stage of a business to developing million-dollar brands. She believes that branding is what people say about you when you are not around. So we need to tell them what to say. And that topic alone we could talk about forever, but right now I want to concentrate on this book that Keenya has just published, Before You Quit Your Job, a strategic guide for entrepreneurs. Now, I'm all about strategy. Kenya's all about strategy. So I hope that you will enjoy our conversation that we had this week about what to do before you quit your job. Okay, your nest is empty, or it will be within a few years. So now what? Whether you know it or not, we are building empires. Empires of faith, family, fun, fitness, and of course, finance. And those empires are the legacy we leave for our loved ones. I'm Tammy Romani, an empty nester mom, grandma, and entrepreneur with a vision for ever greater things in the years ahead. It's never too late, and there is no limit to what we can do. I'm so happy you're here. Now let's get to building. Okay, my guest today is Keenya Kelly. You've just heard me introduce her official introduction, but she's a friend of mine. We have a lot of fun together whenever we are able to be in the same room. And honestly, we have a lot of fun together online as well.
Yes.
Back and forth comments on each other's posts and messaging and things like that. And I have watched her publish a book in probably the fastest time I've ever seen in my life. Like, I have been watching from the sidelines going, I know people have been writing books for 2 years and they haven't done what you've done. She had a vision for this. God told her, go. And honestly, tell me, how long did it take you, Keenya?
I started writing like 3 years ago, but I just quit. But when God told me he said, do it now, it was 3 weeks, 20-something thousand words.
What? So you had just a few things written, some ideas, and then you quit writing it. Can you back us up to that place? Why did you want to write it back then? And why did you quit?
Yeah. So I've been in network marketing for a very long time. I got started back in 2002. And one of the reoccurring themes that we were being taught in network marketing, I think just because they didn't understand, was quit your job. If you quit your job, you can run your business full time. And so I watched myself quit my job too soon and pretty much lose everything because I didn't know how to run an actual business. And I watched hundreds of people lose everything. I watched people get divorced and all the things. And over time, I realized people don't know what they're doing. We all know how to hustle, but if you're going to build a business, that takes a whole nother level of things. And so I was so passionate about it that I was on a cruise ship writing the book. And then I think I had a conversation about a blog I was going to write or something to somebody. And they said, are you going to write like that? and they talked bad about my writing just slightly, and it just derailed me. I was just, that was it. And I just quit.
Yeah. That was before you didn't care what everybody thought.
Right.
Yeah, right. I mean, that was when you cared. Like,
Yeah.
it's funny how we let one comment from one person who doesn't know our hearts and our drive and our desire.
Yeah.
I literally waited a year to start a podcast because I mentioned it to somebody, and she just very offhanded went, yeah, I'm not seeing that for you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not supposed to start a podcast. But I knew I was supposed to start a podcast. So let this be a lesson to y'all.
Yes.
But you know what? Maybe it was also God, because the timing now is right.
Totally.
I mean, as evidenced in putting together, I mean, literally, you were saying, hey guys, I'm writing a book. You had that book written. You had it. I need a formatter. Now I need an editor. And hey, how can I find someone to help me record an audiobook? Hey, I need a design for my cover. And literally in 3 weeks, you had all of that done. And I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. Well, actually, the book was written in 3 weeks, but I would say all the others that was completed within 2 months.
Okay, still. Come on, 2 months? That is rocket speed we're talking about here. So tell me, what prompted you to hop back on board this wagon? Yeah. Were you seeing too many people quit their jobs too soon?
Yeah. So I was, because it happened in network marketing, that was the first start. But then when I jumped into the business consulting world back in 2016, I kept hearing it again. Now here it was, a totally different space with the same type of conversation. And I'm watching all of these people who have these great ideas, buy into these coaching programs, and they're like, quit your job. I'm getting ready to quit. I'm getting ready to quit. And I'm looking at these people going, you barely know how to post on social media. Why do you feel like you can quit your job and run a successful business? But I realized they just didn't know. They didn't know what they didn't know. And the coaches, I don't know why they weren't telling them this, why they weren't looking at the bigger picture for them, but they just weren't being honest with them. And so I found myself getting into tiffs with people online because they would ask me my opinion, and I'm like, do they want me? Honestly, they want the truth. And so when I would tell them, you're not ready to quit your job, people stopped talking to me, blocked me, just talking about me. And I think it's because they didn't really understand my heart, and they didn't really understand the fact that you can make money, but you got to run a whole business. And so I just said, forget it. I just got to write this book. But I still wasn't ready to write the book. What happened was people kept coming up to me. Like, I believe in prophecy, how God will tell someone something and tell them to tell you something. And people kept coming up to me saying, God said, write the book. And I was like, what book is he talking about? And people were like, it's a book on branding. It's a book on divorce, the book on faith. It's a book on Miracle Kitty. And I was like, this is a whole lot of different ideas, but God, you got to tell me what to do. And so I wasn't hearing anything until he invited me to move from Texas to California. And once I got in town, he told me to go to LA for a conference. And as I'm driving to LA, I hear him say, finish the book. And I was like, what book? And he said, Before You Quit Your Job. And that was it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you just dove right in. All right. So let's get into some of your content. I know you are so passionate about it because, like you said, you've seen people lose their lives, really, because they had a job that was providing for them. They had a vision for themselves to either get into network marketing or start an entrepreneurial journey. And they weren't up to speed on really what a roller coaster that is, right? Yeah. And the knowledge that they need. And the numbers. I'm sure you're talking about crunching the numbers.
Yeah.
For actually surviving with, not having this security of an actual 9-to-5 job. And everybody that wants to dive into the entrepreneur space, that's what they dream of, is their quit day.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me, what is the most important thing people need to remember when they're dreaming of their quit day? Maybe now my audience is a lot of creatives, a lot of voice actors, a lot of writers, a lot of people in the creative space, artists who want to sell their art, do their creativity. that's a roller coaster in itself. Many of them have a 9 to 5 job and they do this on the side as they're building it. Another big audience of mine is empty nesters.
Yeah.
So maybe they're looming towards retirement and they're just dying to quit. And
Yeah.
they don't even know if they could retire early. Maybe
Right.
they want to retire 2 years early and get that extra time with their grandkids.
Mhm.
There's so many things to consider. And I'm so happy that you've written a book to help people break this down. So let's go back to my initial question before I started yammering there. What is the number one thing that people need to know, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So it's like there's so many factors, right? And
Yeah.
it all,
Okay.
but the first thing that I would say is I want people to understand this. From the moment you were born, your parents started encouraging you to figure out what you wanted to be when you grew up. They
Mm.
wanted you to be some kind of trade, some kind of something. And so you went elementary, middle, high, college. You went all the going in this lane to have this particular job, right? There's nothing
Right.
wrong with having a job, but everything you learned, every skill, everything was to have a job. 20 plus years. The moment you decide that you're going to go into entrepreneurship, you are back in elementary school, because to go get a job, you've never learned the skill. You've never learned how to think, how to behave, how to build, how to create profit and loss statements. You've never learned any of that. And what happens is people get on social media and in these courses and they go, oh, well, I'm working with Tammy Romani, and so I am where she is. And it's like, no, Tammy has been on this journey for quite some time learning. And so it's
8
important to
years.
understand. Exactly. So
Right.
number one, it's important to understand that it's okay that you have no idea what you're doing. That's the number one thing you have to understand.
Yeah.
It's okay to not know, but you have to acknowledge that you have no idea how to build an actual business, right? And the second thing, which is one of my favorite chapters, is called chapter 2, Hustling Isn't Just for Drug Dealers. That's my favorite chapter, right?
Yeah.
And in that concept, I basically teach people that everybody should have a job, a dream, and a hustle, right?
Okay.
The job pays your bills. The dream is your ultimate goal. That's the big business you want to build, but the hustle funds the dream, because your
Okay.
job is not set up to pay you enough money to put into building a business, right? Like it's going to pay, let's just say you're making $60,000 a year. It's set for you to come back every single day, every single year. It's not set so you can take half of your salary, invest it into a business so you can make millions. That's not why you got employed. So something has to give you the money in order to build the dream, and that's the side hustle. But most people never hear about that. They just think, I'm gonna start this business, it's gonna blow up. And it could, but it didn't always work that way.
Right. Right. Okay. So a job, a dream, and a hustle. Okay.
Mhm.
I know people who have the job and the dream.
Yeah.
What do you mean when you say you've also got to have a hustle? That to me, that sounds like starting another business.
It is. So for
Okay.
me,
So
I've
how does that
always,
work?
yeah, I've always dreamt of having my own creative consulting company, right? That was
Right.
always a dream of mine.
Right.
So when I was getting ready to do that, I was working for Sprint on the corporate side full time. And I knew that in order to start the consulting business, I had to build my business, websites, all the things and tools and products and all that stuff. And Sprint was not going to pay for that. So I knew that I had to put the dream off for about maybe 1 or 2 years, but I picked up network marketing. I got
Okay.
involved with
Your dream was to teach people about branding and to have a branding company?
the consulting
Okay.
company, what I do now.
Okay.
Yes, that was the
Okay.
dream.
Right.
And Sprint was the job.
Okay.
So I got in network marketing
Okay.
and I made $200,000 in network marketing. And while I was earning that, in the background, I was building my business in the
Right.
background. Nobody could see it, but I was building it on a part-time basis. Right. And then once I was making enough money here, I stopped doing that as much and I started investing time teaching on social media. about the business. And eventually I stopped doing the hustle and focused 100% on the business. But I had everything that I needed because the hustle funded it.
That's so great. And I don't think people talk about this enough. Um, a lot of people hop into network marketing companies because they love the product or whatever. And maybe that will become their dream. Like maybe they will do that full time and quit their job and do that. But what I've noticed is that often they will do that, but then they still will move into something else.
Yeah.
Because there's something else they need to teach someone.
Yes.
And I kind of did a similar thing. I joined a network marketing company, earned that car bonus in 3 months, started going, wow, this is really great. And I was very unprepared for the hatred that's out there for network marketing, just as a side note. Like I had no idea because I hadn't done it before. I was just like, I love this product. It's changing my life. Let me tell you, how great it is. So, yeah, you're right. It did make money. And I did do things like buy a microphone with that money.
Totally.
And yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I set up this home studio pretty much with the network marketing money. I just never thought of it in those terms. Hey, exactly. I did something right.
Yeah, you did good. Yes. And
good for me.
I teach people that network marketing is a hustle. It's not the dream. Like somebody runs that company. Somebody owns that company. So if they change the comp plan, you're at their beck and call. But it's the greatest place to invest a small amount of money and you make a lot and then you put it into something. So everybody at some point should be leaving their network marketing company and going after their dream.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's such great advice.
Yeah.
So when people come to you, I know you do consulting, you have a legacy program, you do ministry work.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about how your biggest dream is to be in ministry, but you're not going to be a broke minister, right?
No.
So I want people to know what you. Hey, I grew up in a broke minister's house. I totally understand.
That's good.
So I love that. And you know what? The more money you make, the bigger impact you can make in this world.
Yahtzee.
That is, God has given me my word for next year is impact.
Wow.
And for that very reason.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that all day too, but I want to stick to the topic of your book because I want to direct people to actually buy your book.
Yeah.
And we'll post a link in the show notes. But let's go back to that process. I want to encourage people when they have a dream, we want things to happen so fast, right? And I think that's part of the problem is it appears to us when we watch people on social media that they're overnight sensations. Right. And we don't see the 8 years behind it or the 5 years behind it, or even the 2 or 3 or 4 years behind it of just grit and grind and pushing through and learning how to do everything yourself and the huge learning curve with that. So what was your timeline like when you had this job at Sprint? You had the dream of creating a branding agency and you had the hustle of network marketing. What did that timeline look like for you?
Yeah. So I always tell everybody it's like an 18 to 24 month timeline.
Okay.
Right now, but at the same time, I'm a little different than most people. And that's because I got started in 2002. Right. And so in 2002 was when I read my first personal development book. Right. And so you talk about 17 years until we're at today. Right. But when I started with Sprint, I already had this knowledge, I already had this drive. I already knew how to build a successful network marketing business because I did it from 2002 to 2009. So when I got my job at Sprint.
7 years. That's a while.
Exactly.
A lot of people won't even give it 2 years in network marketing.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yep. And then I've had a lot of Holy Spirit teaching too. But you know how that goes. But I started at Sprint in December of 2014 or something like that. I got enrolled in network marketing by February of that year. By March or May, I was making $10,000 a month because I already knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was making over $10,000 a month at Sprint as well. And
Great.
so I already had the dream. The dream had always been there my entire life, but I invested $300 in somebody's coaching consulting, like maybe that was February. So it's kind of like all this stuff was happening simultaneously, like job and then network marketing and then the consulting. And then I invested in someone's year-long. I was doing all this investing and learning all at the same time. So I think it was probably like 8 months when I finally said, oh, Keenya Kelly is going to launch this business, this brand, right? But I didn't launch it until a year later. Right. So
Okay.
I was thinking about it by like November, December one year, and Keenya Kelly and If You Branded didn't officially launch until September 1st, 2016. So it's kind of like, I guess it really was 2 years, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, 2 years with a lot of years before
Yeah,
that, really, I have found that when I say it's taken me 8 years, 90% of that time has been learning.
exactly.
And that's why, I have my group, the Empire Builders Collective, for people in my age group who are like, I have this dream, but gosh, I don't have 8 years to
Exactly.
learn how to use the internet and social
Yeah.
media and all that, because I joined Facebook kicking and screaming just to, keep tabs on my son while he was studying abroad, because
Yeah.
I had no idea. Then I noticed people were using it for business, and then the whole thing just kind of rolled out from there.
Right.
But I think everyone's on their own journey, but
Mhm.
it's so important to have some benchmarks along the way.
Totally.
So what would you say are some some boxes people can check while they're assessing maybe how much longer they have before they can quit their job, or if they're almost ready, or if they've got a lot of learning to do? What are
Yeah.
some really important things that people need to check off?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first thing that I say in my book, the number one thing is begin with the end in mind. That's
Mm,
from Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People,
yeah,
right? And I talk about, okay, let's just say you want to quit your job by January 2021, right? That's your
right.
goal. Well,
Hmm.
what you have to do is you have to go, okay, on January 1st, 2021, what has to be in place in my business in order for that business to be functioning? How much money do I need to be generating from my business? Not how much money is the business making? How much is your salary? How much do you
Right.
need to be generating to keep up with the life that you currently have? Because if you're making $60,000 a year right now on your job, January 1st, 2021, you want your salary to be $60,000,
Right.
or like you're gonna lose things, everything, because you didn't think that far ahead. Now,
And you
some people,
forgot about business expenses. It can't be business income.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so many factors in all, especially if someone has like a brick and mortar business. Oh man, that's like you got the mortgage, you got all the things, and you just really have to think about at the end of this, when you have that quit day,
Hmm.
what do you need to have in place? Not what outfit are you going to wear, not the party you're going to have, or what you're going to post on social media, but how much money do you need to be bringing in from your business as a salary? And second thing, how much money do you need to have saved? One of my
Mm.
friends and mentors told me when I wanted to quit my job, he said, nope, don't you quit until you have 6 months of your salary in your bank account. I was
Wow.
like, what? He said 6 months. And I was like, well, why is that? He goes, because Keenya, your business is going to go up and down and up and down. And you're going to have expenses that you're not going to plan for. And if you have the savings, you're not going to be out of business because you planned ahead. And that's one of the reasons why the hustle is so important, because you're making all that money and saving it so you can leave, because some people can
Yeah.
blow up immediately, but most people don't.
Yeah. That's a huge consideration. That's a huge consideration to
Yeah.
have savings. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because stuff
Wow.
happens all the time, and then when
Yeah.
you leave your job, you got medical expenses, all the things.
Mm. I'll tell you what, the biggest thing for me is the health insurance issue and
Yeah.
how much it really costs,
Oh
especially
yeah.
in California.
Yeah. I learned real quick when I got out here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. Still shocks me every month. Well, what would you like people to really take away from you today that makes them want to learn more from you? Because I
Yeah.
think we've just barely cracked the surface. And
Yeah.
obviously I want you all to go out and buy Kenya's book and keep in touch with her, follow her on social media. She has, oh yeah, show us the cover.
Yay.
I mean, everything is great about it.
Thank you.
And it's self-published
Yeah.
and it's on Amazon. And I just saw you say that Barnes and Noble has ordered it in your town because you're doing a thing there.
Yes.
I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast about how to be a local legend. Kenya
Right.
is on her way to being a local
On
legend
my
since
way.
moving to Redding, California.
Yeah.
She's
Praise
doing
God.
local events. She's just being brilliant about promoting what she has to offer.
Praise
It's
God.
so good.
Yeah.
They often say that, writing a book won't make you rich. You're not going to get
Right.
rich off of the royalties. As a matter of fact, it might cost you money in the beginning, especially when you self-publish.
Yeah.
But what you get from that is the bounce back
Yeah.
from people who then go to your website and buy your program, or then go to your website and or listen to your podcast, and all of that. It just all kind of works together. So
Yeah.
what would you say to someone who I'm just going to give me as an example.
Yeah.
I have often felt like I have a book in me,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
I just don't. So you've just been on this journey. Do I just wait until I get a clear message? Like, this is your subject matter, that this is the thing I want you to write about. I've had 10 ideas, but none of them have ever really sparked me.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Like, you
Oh,
really
yeah.
got a spark and you powered through and you did it. There's a lot of people listening who have a book in them.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for
Yeah,
us?
totally. So because I love me some Jesus, my first thing is pray. And I know that sounds real religious and real holier than thou, but I'm strongly like, pray and ask the Lord, what message do you want me to get out to the world? Because you have lots of messages, right? But
Yeah.
what is the message that I have that you want me to get out to the world right now? And the reason why that is important is because when the grace is on something, it's easier. It's not easy. It's just easier, because there's so much I could have wrote about, but
Yeah.
the grace was on that, which is why it happened all so fast and why people are buying it and people are so excited about it, because they're not excited that Keenya wrote a book. Yes, people are, but they're buying it because there's something in this book for them. And so you've got to first find out what is the one that God really wants you to write, because he's going to really help you with that too when you're doing the writing process. The second thing that I tell people all the time, and this may sound kind of mean, but just hear me, you have to ask yourself, what is the reason for writing it? If you're just writing a book because you want to get a book written and have it on the shelf and say, I did it, mama, I made it, that's great. I think that that's wonderful. But if your goal is to get people to buy the book, then when you're writing this book, you have to write it just because you have something to say. You have to write it because it's going to change somebody's life. Because people don't just spend $20 on a book because you're like, I have a message and I want you to hear my message. That's not why we do it.
Let me tell you my story.
No, right.
If it's not going to help someone, they won't buy it.
Exactly. I buy a book because it's going to help me, not because I'll support my friends, but we don't want our friends to support. We want to sell millions of copies like Rachel Hollis and them. You know what I mean? So you have to, so you find out what God wants you to write. Second, what's the message that you have for people? And then third, ask yourself, when this is written, how will this affect someone's life? Right? Yeah. When I was writing my book, I wrote all of what I wrote, but I had to pause at the end and say, okay, here's what I had to say. But what happens to the person that's brand new to me, don't know me, and has gotten a copy of this book? What do I want them to take from this? I want them to hear what they should do. I want to give them the practical steps as they are reading the book, right? And then I want to tell them what to do next when they finish the book. And then I want to guide them through their own process. And so I did all of that before the book came out. Like, inside the book is all these tools. Download this, download that. And it's not just so they can get on my email list, but every single thing that was created says, Here's a person who may not never buy anything else from me but this $20 book. And if they buy this book, they get every single thing they need to do for the next 24 months to build their business and quit their job. And that's what you want to think through when you are choosing to write a book, because it's about the person buying it and less about the author.
Right. And I think that's really so true, especially in the genre of business books, self-help books. You can tell your story as part of it because that's what makes you relatable.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't help someone, unless people are really into just reading memoirs, they're not. And, people buy memoirs from famous people, really.
Totally.
They don't buy memoirs from average Joe who quit his job and has, a great business helping people do, build houses or whatever.
Right.
But what they will buy is, hey, I want to build houses.
Yes.
Can you teach me how to do that? Or
totally.
What did you, and as part of that, you tell your story. I talk in my group so much about how storytelling is so important.
Yeah.
And that's why you telling your personal story as part of this has been so important. But also, I can learn a lot from hearing your story. Mm-hmm. But if I don't have, a line of step-by-step boxes to check, it's really not I'm going to be spinning my wheels for a long time. Which is what I've done for 8 years, honestly.
I've done it too.
Yeah. Look at you, 17 years. I didn't even know back when I was raising my kids that you could dream big, so it really, let's go back to the topic of network marketing. Network marketing introduces you, because of the culture inside of that industry, it introduces you to personal development like I've never seen before.
Yep.
And that really gives you a big boost.
Yep.
So I would love to know, Keenya, how are your book sales going?
They're going really well. So here was my thing. This is me being honest. I didn't expect anybody to buy it.
Okay, you just needed to write it because you needed to write it. Okay.
I knew God wanted me to write it, and people were telling me that God was going to do something with it. But I just had this thing was like, I've never written something and someone purchased it I've just never done that. And I just can't see anybody buying it. I just can't see it. So I set a goal for myself. I wanted to sell one book the day that I launched it. I said, I don't want to sell it to my best friend or to my mom. I want it to someone who is buying it because they want to buy it. And listen, when I sent that first email and that first ding happened, I bawled my eyes out. I couldn't believe it. It was 2 people within 2 minutes. I was like, I just bawled my eyes out. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going great. I did my own pre-order of books and they sold out before they ever got to me. So I've ordered a whole nother set of books. And then the books are on Amazon. So it's kind of like, and here's what happened with me. I was writing the book. I couldn't write and sell at the same time. It was just too much for me. It was such a task. And so I said, once the book gets into my hands, I will go into crazy marketing mode.
Okay.
So now we're in like crazy marketing mode, but we've already sold over 100 books.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just the beginning because so many people need to hear this message.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I'm excited.
Have you ever had people come to you and just ask, am I ready? Like, here's my list. Can you help me?
I haven't had that yet, but I have had people come to me and tell me all the things that they want to do and what they're doing and all that. And they ask me, what should they do next? And I have to go and tell them, you need to get a job. Yeah. I have that happen more often than anything. And they feel so depleted, but I just give them a moment. I say, let me explain. And I go into the whole job, dream, hustle thing. Cause I'm in the Jesus realm. I have a lot of people that have faith and God's going to do this, God's going to do that. And I explain to them that God told me what he's going to do with this book. Millions of people would read it, but that God did not sit down and write it. He didn't do the cover. He didn't do the foreword. He didn't do any of the stuff. I had to do it with him.
You didn't wake up in the morning and have a document filled with words?
No
Overnight?
Binding or
the angels?
Right.
The book angels didn't come and type on your laptop?
Not at all. They were with me, but they didn't write it for me.
Yeah.
And when I explain that to people, they go, oh, okay. It like they feel depleted at first, and then they go, oh, so I have to do this. I'm like, yes, step by step by step by
Yeah.
step, you know.
Well, let's kind of parlay that statement into how to keep your motivation.
Yeah.
How do you keep that dream alive?
Yeah.
How do you be so driven that you have this thing you want to do, you're good at, but it's going to cost you money in the beginning to get everything set up. I mean, websites are not, I mean, they can be free, but a
Right.
good one. You want quality, right?
Totally.
You want to learn things, so you might need to buy a course. You might need to hire a little bit of help. You might need to outsource some things. So maybe I'm somebody who's a year into this process and I'm like, is this ever going to come together?
Yeah.
How do you keep that dream alive?
Yeah. So the number one thing I would say is community.
Mm.
That's been my most powerful thing, surrounding myself with people that could see me where I can't see me. Now I do have a audience online that encourage or whatever, but I've always had just really close friends that in those moments where I feel like I'm a failure or I feel like I can't do this and I can't do that, I typically will get a call or a text message or somebody will inbox me, you know.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I'm a very self-aware person and I'm a very honest person. So if I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I just can't do this, I just can't see myself being who God says that I am, or whatever, I have a group of people, like 5 people, and I will send a text and they know it's a Mayday text, right?
Yeah.
Because Keenya is the encourager. If that text comes through, it's time. You need to pray. You need to, whatever. And so I rely on community. Even
Yeah.
when I was writing the book, I didn't think that I could do it. And I told the whole world on social media, I'm trying to do this. I've never done this before. I need encouragement. And I told the world multiple times. Shalene Johnson ends
Yeah.
up seeing it, shares it, tells her
Yeah.
whole crew to encourage me. Then I was like, okay, how am I going to write this every day? And I post on social, y'all, I'm trying to write 2,000 words by 3:00. Encourage me, inbox me, say something, encourage me. And I did it every single day until the book was done. And people they laid it on. And
I
it
love that.
made me look more human. They were like, oh, I'm for real.
Yes. I think by showing people the process, people just think, oh, she wrote a book. Boom.
Right.
No one knows what goes behind that unless you start to share it. And that's the beauty of social media,
Right.
is that we can actually share the process of things. It's why we're doing this live on Facebook
Yeah.
today. This is a podcast interview that you can
Yeah.
hear later on Voicing Your Brand and Empty Nest Empires.
Yeah.
But we wanted to show you the process
Mm-hmm.
of how to do a podcast interview.
Yeah.
And so hey, let's just click, let's go live on Facebook and share it with our people, because
Yeah.
the more people that see the process, the more they understand. And you and I, as strategists, we want to help people with the kind of strategy that they need
Exactly.
to figure out what they need to learn,
Yeah.
find out where the holes are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of what you need to learn. And that comes from having conversation and being in community.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that you knew enough to create that for yourself, because a lot of writers will say it's such a solitary thing. It's such a lonely thing being a writer. It's such a, maybe it's because you're an extrovert
Yeah.
and you are like, oh, heck no, I'm not writing this book by myself. I need people, right?
Yeah.
But I do hear that from a lot of writers. They say they describe it as a very lonely profession. And I don't see that in you.
Oh, don't get it twisted. It was very lonely.
It was. Okay.
Oh my God. To sit there in silence with a computer and you're looking at this Microsoft Word document and you're like, 8,000 words. You're like, how is this ever going to be 25,000?
Yeah.
It was extremely lonely, but I decided that I was going to involve other people because I was in California by myself. I couldn't go to somebody's house and say, let me sit with you as I write. I ain't have no friends. I just
No.
got here, so I was like, I have no choice. Somebody has to do something because these 3 cats aren't talking to me. They weren't doing anything, and I was like, listen, you could easily fall into depression when you're writing a book because you're by yourself and it's so quiet. But I was like, no, somebody's going to help me. I've been encouraging y'all for the last umpteen years. Y'all about to encourage me until
it's time to flip the script on that. And now it's me time.
It's my time to. People were shocked. They were like, what? I'm like, no.
Not to mention you had just made a move across the country. From Texas all the way to Northern California on your own, just because you heard the voice of God say, I want you to move here. No friends, no people,
none.
And that in its own, that's such a big thing that usually takes people a year to adjust to. And then shortly after you get there, you realize, oh, I'm supposed to now write this book.
Yes.
Which I love that.
Yeah, I felt like I was off of Misery. Remember when the writer went to go write his book? I felt like I was him. Except Kathy Bates wasn't there.
Well, I'm glad you're very quick to find community, and I'm glad that you were able to create this space around you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that we haven't covered that you think is important that people know about?
No, I guess I would want to encourage those that are, going into entrepreneurship. You hear me talk about the book Before You Quit Your Job and the whole job thing. I just want to encourage you that, you've got something. You've got something that God has given you. You've got this dream. You've got this passion, and you can do it. Like some of you all are saying, well, I'm too old or I'm not tech savvy. Well, if you're not in the grave, you can do it. Okay. Yeah. You just have to, instead of looking at the elephant as this big, huge elephant, you need to just write it all down. It's kind of like when I was writing the book, I was like, I didn't know what all needed to be done. And here's what I did. I made a really, really long list on a Microsoft Word doc. And it was like, on October the 15th, when this book is completed, what all needs to be done? Okay. And the list was longer than Rapunzel's hair. It was so long, but I was like, this is what needs to be done. And today I'm going to do this 1, 2, 3. And I just took myself through the process. And some days I wanted to quit. But guess what? On October the 15th, when it was that final day and I sent that final email, I didn't know what to do with myself for the next 2 days. Because I was like, well, what do I do now? Because I had taken each day to go through the list and I completed it. And now I have this book in my hands. And I cried my eyes out when that book came. Why? Because I knew what it took to do that. I knew the 17 years. And so I'm saying to you, I'm just like you. I just made a decision to just make a list and then to chop at the bit and don't quit, because on that day when whatever that thing is happens, you'll be super proud of yourself because you persisted.
Yeah. I feel like in 2 years, you should have like the Dave Ramsey does the debt-free shout out. I think you should do the quit day shout out on your page.
That's actually one of my goals. My goal is to have a big conference called Before You Quit Your Job. And I'll have testimonials of people that I've walked through building businesses. That's my goal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a great goal. So you already know what you're supposed to do next. Mm-hmm. I feel like when you finished a big project like that and you've got that big, let down thing, and then you go back to business as usual, going back to my branding business, back to my legacy building, teaching people how to do business and all of that. Was that a bit of a letdown for you? Do you need a big project now that you've completed something like this?
I actually needed a couple days. I couldn't work. I was like, I needed a couple days to just realize what had happened.
Yeah.
But when I went back to working, it was kind of like, okay, back to business, because to write a book was not, okay. The creative part of business development and branding and the consulting part, it gets my blood going every single day. Writing the book didn't do that. Right. Now promoting the book.
It's a grind.
It was kind of like whew, that monkey's off my back now. Now I can get back to the thing that brings me life,
Right. Yeah. Because you like strategizing with people.
Totally.
You like talking to people one-on-one and speaking into their lives
I'm an extrovert.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. It lights me up. I love it. I love this. I love everything about this. And I think you're going to help so many people. I want to make sure people know how they can find you. And I want everyone to know that Keenya does many things. So she has an agency called If You Brand It, right? And that's ifyoubrandit.com.
Yep.
where you can get your logo done, website design, all kinds of things. She has people.
Yeah. Yes. Lots of people.
She knows how to pull people together to work for her and do that. And then she also has your main website is KeenyaKelly.com.
Yep. That's
Am I
it.
right about that?
Mhm.
Okay. And tell us what they can find there.
Yeah. So Keenya Kelly is more so a business consultant where if you are trying to figure out what kind of business you should have, what your brand should be, your types of products, anything from the beginning stages of a business to launching and actually making money. So if you're trying to get in contact with me for any kind of help or courses or masterminds or even the book, everything there is on KeenyaKelly.com.
Perfect. Thank you. And be sure to connect with her on social and
Yeah.
her Instagram. You're so funny. I just get such a kick out of you because Keenya, you're so real and you're so funny, and people need that in their lives. You all need some Keenya in your life. So
Hey.
thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Tammy. You're amazing.
And there you have it. I really enjoyed this interview with Keenya, and she's such a joyful person to work with, to be friends with, and just to follow. If you need some inspiration, you should follow her on Instagram at the very least, and also on Facebook. Join some of her groups. But if you want the book, you can get it, of course, on Amazon, but you can also get it on her website. And if you buy it directly from her at KeenyaKelly.com/book, you will get also a free download of her audiobook. And hey, that's a win, right? So I hope that this has given you some food for thought. If you enjoyed this episode, would you give us a review? 5 stars would be great. This is like kind of giving us a tip in the tip jar. It tells podcasters that you like the content and that you want more. And believe me, more is coming. I've got great things in store for us, and I cannot wait until we meet again. So stay tuned and have a great day. Bye-bye.